Continuing our coverage of the Pope's historic trip to sub-Saharan Africa, joining us now is Crux Rome Bureau Chief Inés San Martin. She's flying with the Holy Father. And as Francis says, he is coming as a pilgrim of peace, hope, and reconciliation. He's visiting countries that are politically and socially unstable. How will he fulfill the theme of this mission?
Actually, that is a very good question, and it's something that at the end of the day, Pope Francis has become a bit of an expert on. He's really good at trying to reach out to those in the outskirts, and of course, those who are at war with one another would fall under that category. He's seen violence firsthand. Of course, the situation he knows very, very well, which is that of Argentina, is very different to that he's going to find in Mozambique or in Madagascar. But still, there are some very common elements, including, I have to say, that the extreme poverty that he's going to encounter in some of the stops he's going to be making.
Speaking of extreme poverty, the Pope kicks off the trip with 3 days in Mozambique. The UN ranks the nation among the world's poorest. He's also arriving not long before a national election, and the country is still living with the consequences of a civil war. What's on the Pope's agenda there?
It's all about peace, it's all about reconciliation, which is actually not all that different to what John Paul II tried to bring to this country when he visited in 1988. His whole message was about, yes, peace and reconciliation, and also the church's role when it comes to trying to mediate and help and foster dialogue between two sides that haven't seen eye to eye since the country's independence in the 1970s.
The next stop for Francis is Madagascar, an island nation off the coast of East Africa, also gripped by poverty. You've spoken with a missionary priest who spent the past 50 years in the country. What did he tell you about the reaction to the news that the Pope was coming?
The people were ecstatic. It's a very joyful event for them, and they're very much looking forward. This is what he encountered by from the people he actually ministers to. We're talking about an Argentinian priest who speaks the Pope languages on every kind of major issue when it comes to global warming, when it comes to fighting poverty, and of course Argentinian, because everyone who speaks Spanish will tell you Argentinians have their own very much language. And this is something the Pope and this missionary have in common. And this is something this missionary has been able to bring and sort of impart in the people he serves in Madagascar. We're talking about some 30,000 people who were lifted up from poverty by this man and his mission.
The Pope also visiting Mauritius. It's another island nation with a small population, only a little more than 1 million people. Half the country is Hindu, the rest are Christians and Muslims. Why is the Pope going there?
I think it's a very interesting choice. First of all, because the Pope is all about fostering dialogue between different religions. And here you have a country in which three major religions actually live peacefully. But actually, I think one of the other reasons why the Pope is going to Mauritius is because of the fact that despite it's often described as, Africa's most developed economy or where people are better off, there is a hidden truth. The wealth that the country reports is actually not the country's wealth, but that of people who don't really want to pay taxes in their own countries. So you have a lot of corruption going on. So it's going to be very interesting to see the Pope speaking truth to power in a country that is seen as the miracle of Africa, but in his mind is probably not really.
And just really quick for us, this is the 31st apostolic journey for the Pope. How would you rank it in importance and possible outcomes?
I think it ranks pretty high. Africa is definitely in the heart of the Pope. We're talking about a man who wanted desperately to be a missionary priest, and he couldn't achieve that because of health issues. So it's going to be very interesting to see him in many ways. As we always see him when he's in Africa or when he's in Asia, living that boyhood dream almost of being a missionary priest. And it also has to be said, all three countries are mission territories for the Catholic Church. And October next month is, as Pope Francis requested, an extraordinary missionary month for the Catholic Church. So it's definitely a good impulse for that dream he has of a church that goes out to the outskirts.
Inés San Martin, Crux Rome Bureau Chief, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.